feel like the world's sometimes unhinged. We hear so much negativity, we don't hear our value or our worth. There's some students who they're trying so hard and they think they're dumb because they failed a test and telling them, you matter, you make a difference, and you make the world better.
Okay, welcome back to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. We are super excited for our guest today, one of my favorite YouTubers, Chris Provost. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much. You are so kind. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited for anybody that doesn't know Chris, you're in for a treat because we've got somebody who, number one, loves one of my favorite things, which is Disneyland, and also has a channel that is just full of positivity. And on this channel, our goal really, as you know, is we love gratitude, positivity, and we just want to put some of that out in the universe. And
Sure.
everybody's got an awesome story. So let's talk about it.
Okay, let's do this.
So I met Chris in person the first time, and I was kind of a fanboy about it. I was kind of with my daughter when we ran into you at Disneyland a month or two ago.
Yep.
And it was about long enough to take a selfie.
Yeah.
And then to tell you really nervously, I got a podcast. You want to come on it?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Sure.
So, and anyway, I ended up tracking him down at some point and told him why we do this. And he agreed to come because he's awesome.
Oh, you're kind. I'm happy to be here. This is for a great purpose. I love this. Sparks of Gratitude is amazing.
Yeah. So, Chris, could you tell us a little bit about what your podcast is and how people can find it?
Sure, absolutely.
Excuse me, your podcast, your YouTube channel, and all your content.
Yeah, absolutely. So our YouTube channel is called Provost Park Pass, and it's on YouTube, obviously, and it's really a deep dive into Disney history, cool facts, most things that people don't know about Disney. And so a lot of people are really big Disney fans, and I love history. I just absolutely love history. And I remember what happened was when I was, I think it's 7th or 8th grade, I was not feeling good. I was sick and didn't go to school that day. And my mom had this rule that if you couldn't go to school, then I couldn't watch television. And so I was just laying in bed and I went down, we had a bookshelf of books. I was trying to find something to entertain myself. And I found this book called A Quarter Century of Disney. And it was the first 25 years of Disneyland. And I took that book and I started reading it and I learned all these cool facts. And from that point on, I kind of just became obsessed with it. Cool facts. There's lots of urban legends that are not true about Disney. And I was trying to weed through what's true, what's not. And when I was I used to live in California. I had a friend. He's like, man, every time we go to Disney, you tell me something cool that I did not know. And I've never heard from anywhere else. He's like, you should do a YouTube channel about that and just share that. And I was like, I guess I could do that as and it was 100% a hobby. And we started that, and I would just go and do little cool facts about Disney. And then the channel took off, became very popular, and people like it. So that's how it kind of got started.
Well, I love it. So tell me, how long ago was that you actually started it?
Started it in 2019, I think was when we started it. And so it started like in January of 2019.
Okay. And I think I remember what your first video was. Was it about desserts?
Yeah, that was right.
Desserts?
Yes. So that was, back then it was just like, the fact that that is amazing. I love that. It was about the top 10 desserts at Disneyland. And like I was editing videos, I figured out. And the second one I did was Adventureland Secrets Revealed. And I think if you go back and watch that one, it's a disaster. At one point, the audio even gets unsynced because I was trying so hard to edit it and do all these things and still fumbling around trying to get comfortable with the camera and the process of it. But yeah, it was a top 10 desserts. I went and filmed it, and I filmed that in December of 2018, but we didn't put it out until January is when the channel actually went live. And I remember I couldn't believe it because I think we had like 200 views, and I was like, I can't believe this.
You made it.
Yeah, I was like, this is amazing. But it was literally just for fun. I didn't really think of it as anything other than a hobby. And then it just ended up getting a little more and more popular and more popular, and then it just kept on growing. And then it became that point where you talked about your wife, how she was kind of good influence for you. My wife Amanda is amazing, and she at one point she's like, hey, we have a choice here. You could either keep working professionally or you can't do both because they're both taking so much amount of time." And she's like, "I think the YouTube is we should do that." And I'm normally a risk taker and she's not, but in this situation, it was reversed, and I was like, "Okay, if you think so." And so we ended up I went to my boss and told him I was gonna do YouTube for I wanna do this, and he actually wanted me he didn't want me to quit. So he's like, "I'll give you a year sabbatical. How about that? We'll take 1 year off, and you just get this out of your system, then and then come back." And I was like I felt like I had a safety net. I was like, "Okay, I could do that." But then I we ended up leaving and traveling around the world. This world tour, we're going to every Disney park around the world and got to Disneyland Paris, and it was in, February of 2020, right when the pandemic was starting to hit, and, we were working with a bunch of people to coordinate this, and they said, "Hey, go back to Florida because 'cause they're travel advisories." I went back to Florida, they put us on a Disney cruise, and they're like, "Go on a Disney cruise, and then after that, have you reverse engineer, you'll go to Tokyo," and they go the other way around the world because by then this will be all over, and of course, I did have I got on this Disney cruise, and we ended up getting back they went back to Utah, and they're like, "Just wait in Utah for 2 weeks, and then we'll start this all over again." Of course, the world shut down, and I was devastated, and I told my wife, I said, "You know," I said, I said, "During the pandemic, we can't really do content. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Maybe I'll try to go back to my job." But since everything had happened, they had kinda shuttered and were like, trying to weather a storm. But I was surprised during the pandemic, a lot of people were watching. I think they were bored and looking for good content, and
I was one of
were
those.
you one of those? Well, here's a great story about that. One of the videos we did was we did Disneyland in our basement. We
I
created Do you
remember.
remember that one?
I remember.
Okay,
I had so much fun watching this because we had annual passes and
yeah,
we were
yeah,
missing Disneyland and we
yeah,
wanted to know what's going on and who knows, and so we'd get onto YouTube and watch your channel
yeah,
to get a little bit of Disney and to find out
you know
who knows what's
yeah,
happening.
what's going on? And that was so from March to January, I did 1 video a week, and we tried to do something interesting, like, we did Disney cooking videos, we did, but that one we did Disneyland in our basement, we tried to recreate what Disneyland's like, and that one went viral, and people loved that video, but it was a little embarrassing because I ended up getting, like, a thing from the British
Yeah.
broadcasting, and they're like, "Hey, you sign this, do you mind if we showcase your on the news?" And the whole time I'm like, "This is gonna be great publicity, this is great." So I was like, "Sure." So I signed a little waiver and, like, they end up showing a news clip, like, "This is what Americans are doing during the pandemic, crazy Americans." They showed my wife going down the stairs and like and I was like, "Oh, no." And then it got picked up from there and went to Korea, and they didn't even ask permission, they were just showcasing our stuff and like, "Crazy Americans during the pandemic," and so but it was a good I mean, it was kind of a crazy time, then they ended up while Disney World Florida opened up, and I was invited to go before the opened to public, and I remember I was just terrified, I was so scared at that time, but I was like, "I'm gonna travel," so I traveled out there, and I look back now, I was like, "What a" it was a dream because I was in Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom, I think there was less than 5,000 people total, and it was just me walking on every attraction, and it was awesome.
So when you went to Florida,
Yeah.
did you go with yourself? Amanda didn't go with you?
Yeah, I went by myself. I went down there and it's funny now I look back and as I was trying to take all the precautions I thought at the time. Now I look back, I was like, "Okay, maybe I was, like, overly abundant." But, like, I had a hotel room. I would literally go in the hotel room. I had, like, Lysol and everything, hose everything
I
down.
remember that.
Yeah, and then I would go to, Magic Kingdom, and, we had to wear masks. It was July, it's super hot and humid, but we had our masks on, and I would go there, and they had us spaced out in the lines. You didn't stand next to people.
I went a couple months later
Oh,
with the
did
whole
you?
family,
Yeah.
and I remember and
So
even a couple months later, there was nobody, but
yeah, it didn't really pick up for a while there,
yeah,
for a while. And were they still spacing the lines when you went
yeah.
back? Yeah. So they had the lines spaced like that. They had hand sanitizer everywhere, and I actually felt pretty safe. I was like, this is seems like good protocol." And then but the second I was done filming, I would go back to my hotel room, and I didn't venture out. I was afraid to go out anywhere. So I just went so every morning I'd get up, go right to, Magic Kingdom and just make videos, and we get a lot of content, and then we would, take it and our editors and myself would edit it and put out different videos for people to see, yeah.
So you had all these grand plans of this
Yeah.
world tour of all the Disney parks,
Yes.
and it got shut
It
down.
just completely shut down, and so that was devastating, right? You're like, because we had a plan, because we were gonna go from Florida to Disneyland Paris. From Disneyland Paris, we are gonna go to, Hong Kong, and then from Hong Kong to Shanghai, from Shanghai to Tokyo. Tokyo, we're gonna go to Aulani, which is a resort in Hawaii, and
Mhm.
then from there, we're gonna end at Disneyland. And, we even had people, like, the design that they were gonna meet us there in Disneyland, and everything just fell apart. And so this last summer, we ended up back and kinda recreating and going to all the parks around the world, but that first time was just devastating.
Yeah, so did you feel like it was over, like, this isn't gonna happen, the channel's
Yeah, I thought I was done. I remember coming back, and my boss had given me, like, that sabbatical type of thing, and I kinda talked to him, and I was like, "Hey, I'm interested in maybe come back," and he's like, "We are not really doing anything right now." He's like, "We were worried about," because they had shut down their offices and everything, and he's like, "We're trying to have things work remote, figure that out." And he's like, "So we have to weather the storm, and then we can pick up once we're done." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." And so I was like, "We'll just lean into the YouTube and try to see how that works." And I was surprised that they were very receptive of it, and they liked it, they were enjoying it, and, it was hard though, because I remember, like, every week I was trying to, what am I gonna do? And I remember, so this one, if I would've known you then, I could have asked you your opinion. I did one where I reached out to a bunch of attorneys throughout, the United States, and I just say, "Would you like to volunteer some time?" And I gave them a villain, and says, "If you were to persecute this in court, like, who's the wor which villain's gonna get the most time?"
Oh, I guarantee you if I represented a villain, he'd go to jail forever because I am no good at that.
So,
I help people with wills and trusts.
oh, yeah, 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 you wouldn't be really good at persecuting people, but, like, the one was, like, we had this one attorney, and he went all out. He had Captain Hook, and he got him for, like, child kidnapping, he got him for piracy, he got him, and so when you totaled all the time, like, he would've gone to jail for, like, 20 years, and so we were trying to do interesting, fun things like that, and people, they like that. They like just kinda looking at those fun things like that.
Well, so tell me, of course, that's totally unexpected lesson that you went through.
Yeah.
So what are some of the priceless or lessons that you learned through that struggle?
Well, so perseverance was really important. So I think there's a when things get difficult, I think a lot of times you just wanna stop. You're like, "I'm gonna quit, and what am I doing this for?" And but here's what had happened. My friend, when I started my YouTube channel, we call him Thumbnail Dave, because he used to make our thumbnails. He's got his own channel now, so he's busy doing his own channel, but at the time he was Thumbnail Dave, and he told me, he's like, "Hey," he's like, "when you start this," he's like, "you have to commit for 3 years." He's like, "No matter what happens," he goes, "if you only have 100 subscribers at the end of 3 years or whatever," he's like, "you can't quit until 3 years." He goes, "You have to be consistent, and no matter what." And I was like, "Okay, I could do that." And there was times when I wanted to quit. I was like, I wanna quit my YouTube channel, and I was frustrated, and then I was like, "Okay, I committed for 3 years. I'm gonna honor my promise of 3 years." And that really helped me, because one of those times when you're like, "Why is this worth it? What am I doing here?" And then it allowed me to go back and look and say, "Yep, I'm gonna keep going on it." Because no matter what you do, no matter what job you have or whatever you have or whatever you're doing, even if you're doing your favorite thing, there's highs and there's lows. There's those days where you're like, "This is great." There's other days you have it's just a little more difficult, and you're like, and to weather the storm. And so during the pandemic, I was like, I don't know if I can do this," but I promised to do it for 3 years, and that was during the pandemic, so I just kept going through it, weathering the storm.
Yeah, well, I imagine you're being forced to find
Yeah.
that creativity
Yes, absolutely.
was
That was
difficult.
it was difficult. I was but we had a lot of people that would I had a lot of cast members. We have a really good working relationship with Disney, and they'll supply us with some information sometimes, and they would gave us recipes to make, so we did some recipes. Those were fun ones to do. And, when, like, the movie Onward had come out, and I, like, dissected the movie Onward and was looking for cool things, but there was a stress, because what would happen is the second the video would go live, we'd only do 1 video a month, I mean, 1 video a week, it'd go live on Wednesday, and I was like, I'd be working, 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 and the second we'd upload that video on Wednesday, I'm like, "Got it," and all of a sudden panic again, what's the next video? So you got a week to try to figure that out, and then you start working on the next video. But it gave me something to do, and I enjoyed it. I have some fantastic memories of what we did. There was one where my wife accidentally chipped my tooth. It was we were doing a cooking video, and we're trying to be silly, and they had this where I had a sweatshirt on, but her arms were through the sweatshirt, so it was her hands
I
making the
remember this
yeah,
video.
and we had a metal cup, and she went like this and hit my tooth, but we kept it in video, and she started crying because she felt so bad, and but, that's funny thing about that video, I actually have never watched that video, like, I saw it the very first time, and it made a little sound that went tink when the cup hit my tooth and shattered my tooth. It grossed me out so much that after that, I edited it, but I had to do it with no sound because I didn't wanna hear it, but people all the time mention that one to me a lot. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I really appreciate your love for Disney
Oh,
history,
yeah,
and that just happened to you.
yeah,
So that's one of my fascinations with
yeah,
Disney is kind of on several levels. One of them is with Walt Disney, the man, the visionary,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And what someone 100 years ago created. And
it's
so,
amazing.
I read I think Gerber, I can't remember, wrote this awesome comprehensive biography on Walt Disney, which I
Yeah,
loved. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and most
yeah,
of it's good.
mhm,
And I learned a lot of secrets in that one too, but
yeah,
it's so fun. Another thing I love about Disney and Disneyland is when I was in college, I'd go to Disneyland and kinda make fun of it like, "Oh, Disneyland's kinda dumb." I was
yeah,
kinda
oh,
too
yeah,
too
yeah,
cool for
yeah,
it and so
sure,
on. But then when I'd take my kids, I we committed, and before we started the recording, I talked to you about once we took our kids and surprised them and took them to
yeah,
Disneyland. But I one of these times I'd prepared in advance, and I'd done so much research to make this magic for
mhm,
them. I said, "I'm gonna go to Disneyland, and I'm gonna learn as much as I can and plan because I don't wanna be the parent that's telling my kids to stop crying and, 'No, you can't have a
yeah, yep,
churro,' and
yep,
this
yep,
and complaining, 'I don't wanna go, the lines are too long,' and
yeah,
so on, and so I just learned everything I could, the fast pass system and how I could do
sure,
that and
yeah,
maximize everything and what we needed to try and where and when, and rope drop and,
mhm,
everything. And so we did that, and I had so much fun. I couldn't even believe it. It
yeah,
it wasn't just magic for my kids. I loved it and fell in love with it so
yeah,
much, and I don't even mind waiting in line anymore
yeah,
because I have that time in this wonderful space with my kids
yeah,
captive,
yeah,
and we get to share time together
yep,
and talk to each
yep,
other,
yep, yep,
and we don't just sit on our phones,
yeah,
unless we're playing Heads Up or
yeah,
something
yeah,
together,
exactly,
but we share time together,
yeah,
and so even when we're away from it, even our teenagers are starting to get too cool for stuff from sometimes. They miss it, but I believe what they miss is our memories there.
100%. 100%. In fact, I've talked a lot to a lot of parents about that. It's difficult when you go to Disneyland as a parent. By the way, I'm gonna put a pin in this for a second, I'm gonna come back. Disney used to have a plan, and you don't even realize that you were 100% on the path of the plan. So Disney had a thing called Disney University and this marketing plan, and I was able to attend some
Yeah,
things like
I
that.
remember that.
And their original plan is they wanted people to visit Disneyland 4 times in their lifetime. And the first time was when they were a child, going with their parents. The second time they wanted you to go is when you're in college, and they knew at that point that you were their least profitable. That was when you were not gonna spend money on too many souvenirs, you're not gonna be buying food, you'd buy a ticket to get in the park, but that's really all you're gonna do, and they knew that. But that was in preparation because they wanted you to come back when you were a parent. Now that you got children, they want you coming back again, bringing your children, but the main goal is back then is they wanted you to come back again when you were a grandparent because they knew if you came back when you're a grandparent, you were going to basically buy everything that wasn't nailed down for your grandkids. You want that? You want that? Because everything you didn't get, they were prepping your whole life, having commercials, movies, and shows. There's this four-touch plan. Now they've kind of moved away from that 'cause they know that we're going a lot more than 4 times in a lifetime, but you were like you did that, like, in college, and they knew exactly what going along the lines of what you were saying there. So, yeah, you're right on the plan there. But we were talking about, like, going with parents to Disneyland. One of the things I always talk with parents about is it's hard because 'cause you're spending money. And when you're a parent and going on vacation, time is your money. So you want to ride as many rides as you can. You want to see all the fireworks and all the parades because you feel like the more you see and the more experience, then you're getting more for your money. But for children, their vacation is not even remotely based off of that. They're not gonna remember that. What they remember is the memories and the way that you felt. when you wwere there with your parents. So I talk to parents all the time. I said, if you don't get all the parades in, that's okay. If you don't get to ride all the rides, that's okay, because your kids are going to remember how they felt when you were with them. And so, and there's this reminds me. I used to teach courses on, we do like talk about effective communications and sales tactics. But Maya Angelou, she had this saying, which goes, "You might not remember a person's name, but you'll remember the way they made you feel." And I would talk to, like, my other sales colleagues, like, I always ask them, like, "Did you ever have a favorite teacher?" And that people always did, they had a favorite teacher, and they remember how they felt safe and how that teacher made them feel smart. It's the way they made them feel. And when we go to Disney with our kids, it's not all the rides. Like, if you ride, "Did I ride 16 rides or 18 rides?" It's, "Did I have fun with dad or did I have fun with mom? We had so much fun. And we went back to swim with the hotel, and we swam, and we had so much fun," and you just remember all those great memories, and that's really the magic of Disney.
It is, it's one of the things that they're very deliberate about, and it
Yeah,
all stems from Walt Disney himself, that it's
100%.
he wants to make people feel. He
Yeah.
wants to give them an experience and a
Yes.
memory. And I love that. In fact, this is something fun that I did. So this book right here, it's called The Experience. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
So it's about Disney and kind of the Disney way,
Okay, yeah.
and how they're very intentional about creating an experience for
Mhm.
people because of exactly that. They remember how they feel.
Yeah,
And so I had my team here at work. We read that book together,
yeah.
and then I took them all to Disneyland.
That's awesome. That's
Like, we're
awesome.
going to Disneyland. We flew
Yeah,
them all down there, and we went to Disneyland. And I said, let's just go have a ton of fun
yeah,
after talking about that. And then said, in my professional life, we're not an amusement park,
yeah.
but we interact with people. And I said, okay, well, what principles can we take and apply? Because people do interact with us constantly, and they will remember how they feel.
Yeah,
So
100%.
what can we do to help that?
Yeah, and this is a little bit off of the Disney, but when I was in my professional realm, I talked about it being the delighted customer. So, if you put a scale from 1 to 10, right? And 10 is like they love what you did. They love what you did, your customer, and the 9 is really good. Then you got like 7s and 8s are like they're like, "Yeah, this is great." And then 6 and below is your negatives, right? And I would work with companies and say, "You 9s and 10s are all you care about." If and people are like, "Well, this client gave us a 8." They said, I said, "8 is a failure." Because when you have a person that gives you an 8, that means they can be dissuaded and they'll go to another your competitor. A competitor offers a better price or better experience or a new cell phone or something cool, they can still be dissuaded. But when you have a client who's dedicated at 9 or 10, they're called these delighted clients, they are loyal and they're gonna stay with you. And that's what Disney has created, these loyal clients and customers because they give us those special touches. They're always trying to delight us and take us to that higher level, and that's something that, people love those experiences.
So, and you clearly have those experiences
Yeah,
and memories, which obviously you're
mhm,
devoting your life to, in
yeah,
large part,
yeah,
a channel about
Disney, yeah,
Disney, right?
absolutely,
And you go beyond that to other
yeah,
parks and other experiences. I noticed you released a video recently about,
yeah,
Pompeii,
yeah, yep, yep,
right?
yep, yep,
So it goes beyond that, but
yeah,
it's really heavily focused, and its
yeah.
genesis was in Disney. So
Yeah, well, the thing about our channel is I don't want just my there's a lot of so we could talk about Disney YouTubers, a lot of Disney YouTubers, and they have a really good market. They like to vlog and just kinda go they don't have a lot of them will tell me they don't even have a plan. Let's go and just show their day. Um, I never really felt super comfortable with that type of approach. People love that. I want mine to be more of having a point. There's a I wanted to provide value. So when people are done watching a video, they've learned something new, or they saw something cool, or they felt better about themselves, or some. I wanted to provide some type of value, so that way I felt like I was making the world a little bit better. I know it might sound weird, but in my mind, it works. And so that's kind of how I like to work. Always put little tidbits in there. And like we were our family, we went to Rome for a little bit, so I did like a Pompeii. I tried to do like little educational things. I try to make them family friendly. My favorite compliments that I ever get is when a dad or mom's like, whenever a new video comes out, we watch it as a family. We wait till everybody gets home together as a family. We sit down in front of the TV and we watch the episode. And that's it. That's my goal. I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that.
let's go on with that.
Sure.
Before we started recording, I asked you a little bit about this,
Yeah.
and it seems pretty clear to me that you understand the importance of how people feel and having
Yeah.
those touch points. and I commented, "When I watch your channel,
Yeah,
it feels a certain way."
yeah.
And I'm guessing that that was very deliberate.
Yes, it was. It
And
was
so talk to me about how you and yeah, go ahead and talk to me
yeah.
about how you came up with the
I've seen there's been a lot of people who other YouTubers have commented on that and even made videos talking about the way that I talk to the audience, and I make in my mind, when I'm there doing a video, I think of the audience as if they're there with me. I think of them as my friends, as my family. I feel like I'm talking to them. I'm not I think sometimes people do it where they want the focus maybe to be more attention on themselves about their experience, and I like to show it as if we were there together. Like, "Hey, let's go look at this. Let's go look at this." And so I always try and talk in a way that it feels make I want them to feel included. I want that person who's watching this video to feel like, "Hey, if I happen to be Disneyland and you were there with me, this is the exact same experience we'd have together, just having some fun." And I kinda like the approach of having it helps me feel more comfortable on camera. It's like, "This is my family, my friends, and I'm showing some cool stuff that I know." So, yeah, try to go to that route.
well, and I noticed that you have a very positive tone,
Yeah, yep, try to always be positive.
and the content or when you even when you choose to talk about sometimes even controversial decisions that
Mhm.
Disney might have made, you always have a positive
Yeah.
perspective.
I sometimes people give me a little bit of grief for that. To be clear, I don't get paid by Disney. Disney doesn't pay for me or anything like that. People there's a dissolution of that. People think that I'm like their corporate person doing this, but no. The thing about it is Disney's provided me with so much happiness through the years, and, provided me with happiness, my wife with happiness, my son, and I'm grateful for it. And I want other people to go to Disneyland to have that same experience. I want them to feel that magic. There are times when Disney does things that I'm like, "Why do they do that? I don't understand why they're doing that." But we made a deal, my wife and I made a deal when we first started YouTube, is we weren't gonna go negative. It's easy to go in and just blast something negative, like and then you're gonna get a lot of clicks really fast, right? A lot of people will watch that. But what I've noticed since we don't do that, we just try to be positive, the people who follow Provost Park Pass, they're loyal. They feel like family, they feel like friends, and they like our messages, and they're not there to just hear the negativity. And if Disney does something that I disagree with, I'll kinda talk about it and try to break it down into business sense. This is maybe why they're thinking this, and this is why they're thinking this. But they have some type of, business plan that I'm not aware of, so I can't always assess that to the best degree, but I try to be positive about it.
Well, for me and my family, I can tell you,
Yeah.
I am so grateful that you do it that way,
Oh, thank you. I'm
and
so
that's why
glad.
we come back,
Yeah,
because we learn something,
yeah,
it reminds us when we're not there what we're excited about,
yeah,
and we learn new things,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
tricks and stuff, and I like it when I knew it beforehand, and I'm
yeah.
kinda like, he's
You're like,
telling the top 10 tricks, and I'm like, "I know what
"I
this
know
one's gonna."
this, I know this." I always tell people when they watch that video well, when they meet me in the park, I mean, and they'll like, I was walking around telling all my friends all these cool facts that I learned from the videos, and I always tell them, I'm like, "Just tell them," they're like, "How do you learn that?" Just say, "Not only am I smart, but I'm also beautiful," and just leave it at that. I love that. I love it when people do that and just be able to tell their family because it's so fun to tell somebody about something about Disneyland, and you see their face just go, "Oh my gosh," because there are some really cool deep cuts, cool secrets that Disney puts a lot of thought into that, where it's just not just random theming. There's purpose for all that, and it's so fun to see when people realize that. I think it
Yeah.
makes it more magical.
Yeah, well, I'll give you credit for it right now and remind everybody again, go to
Thank
Provost
you.
Park Pass and watch it, especially before you're going to Disneyland.
Yeah,
Binge some of that, and you're gonna have a better experience.
yeah,
So, there's a couple other things that you do on your channel
yeah.
that I love. Number 1, you're the king of dad jokes
Oh,
and
love
puns.
them. Yeah, love them.
So how many of these did other people tell you and that you're just coming up with on the spot?
Well, most of them, a lot of them come with a slot on the spot. So people have different talents, right? And some people can watch movies and they can remember every line from a movie, and other people can read books and remember every detail. My brain just remembers every pun I think I've ever been told ever, and I do. I mean, I had to apologize before we get into this because I wanted to do a really good podcast for you, but I normally have way more energy. Like, it's, like, super high, and I'm trying to amp it up a little bit. But last night, I had, like, the weirdest dream I've ever had in my life. I jumped as a muffler on a car, and I woke up exhausted. So that's a little sampling of the jokes. I like the jokes. I just think it's fun. I love doing them, and I just remember them. And, like, I get in such situations, it's like my brain has a little Rolodex, like pirates, and also it's like pirate pun that come through, or like a Peter Pan, or just whatever. And I find that the puns is something really funny because we it unites people because there are a group of people that love them. They're hilarious, and there's another group of people that's just like they're just triggered, like, "Ah!" But they still enjoy it in a way that even though it's still
Well,
fun.
I love how when you deliver it, you're walking through the park and you're just holding a
Yeah,
camera on your
yeah,
own face and you're
yeah,
given a pun. The fact that you don't have a laugh track or an audience
yeah,
there, it's the perfect delivery system
yeah,
ever because every one of them is just silence
yeah,
after,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah, I know.
"Did you like it or not?"
People yeah, it's awesome. So one of my greatest compliments that I ever got was there was this family, and the dad had served in he did 13 tours in Iraq. He'd been in the army for 23 years, and the mother and daughter one day, they heard their husband and dad, he was laughing, and she told me, she's like, "We hadn't had laughter in our house for a long time." And she's like, "So we crept down to see, like, what was he laughing at?" And she goes, "He was watching your videos, Provost Park Pass, and it was the puns. Some of the puns would just make it he just would start to laugh." And she goes, "It was such a turning point for us because he just was, like, hearing laughter in our home." And I was like, "Well, I love that." So I love that fact, and I love that people love it, and I know that some people hate it, and they love to boo me, and I have no problem with that. I love that too. It's fun for me.
I'm glad that you have the opportunity to get these stories
Yeah,
back to you.
yes.
And so are these running into people in the park who tell you
Yeah.
these stories or
Well, yes. So the we were talking about sparks of gratitude. I'm gonna kinda segue into this part here maybe. Something that we try to do at Pros Park Pass is in the month of December, we want to find my wife and I sit down, we try to find causes that we truly believe in. And then, for that week, I'll do, like, a videos. At the end of the videos, I'll have, links down there for people to donate, and when we donate the money, those videos to those causes. And the one of them was called The Ready Room. That guy that laughed, his name's Rob, he ended up creating nonprofit organization for wounded veterans. And what happened is that he went to Disneyland. He hated Disneyland, but his cousin told him to go, and he was so nervous to go after being in doing like 13 different tours and being around people, and but he went to Disneyland and he loved it. And so he came back, and that's how he found Pro's Park Pass because he was missing Disneyland. And they reached out to us and let us know, like, "Hey, we're in the park." And I ended up bumping into him and talking to him just like how you and I met. We started talking, and I learned about this nonprofit, and what he does is he collects money, and then he takes a vet that's been wounded, their whole family, and he takes them to Disneyland and, pays for it and takes let's do like a VIP tour, so that way they can kinda skip the lines
Mhm.
a little bit, and he's trying to let them get reacclimated to everyday life through Disney. And when I heard about that, I was like, "That's amazing." And so that's something that, so December, we always like that. And I try to find other causes I think are worthwhile. Did one was for, like, suicide prevention. It's very important to me that, we do that. There's one that was for families who've lost children. We've done that. We have a mutual friend, Corey Mon. Corey, he was a musician that was struggling and a single father, and I was like, "We can help him out, we can," and so we just tried to help him out, and it's something that I feel very passionate about. I want to give back and make the world better. So I don't know if you ever go hiking. When I used to go hiking or camping as a kid, the one thing we always told was like, leave it better than you found it. You go in, you pack in your garbage, you take your garbage out. And if you find somebody who left their garbage on the trail, you just pack it out, leave it better than you found it. And so my wife and I are like, we want to leave the world better than we found it. Just try our best that we can try to leave it better than we found it.
Well, I believe that you are.
Oh, well, I
And
appreciate it. We hope so. We're trying. We try.
yeah,
So yeah,
well, it's one of those things that you know the story of the starfish on the beach and someone's picking
yeah,
them up and throwing them
yeah,
back into the sea and someone says, "You're not gonna make a difference." And he
yeah,
says, "Well, I made a difference to that one."
yeah, yeah.
Right? So you're making a difference
So
and
I hope so. I want to. I want to. So yeah,
yeah. So that's something that you actually do, and this is one of the many reasons why I wanted to talk to you on
yeah,
this podcast is is something that you do in all of your videos, or
Mhm.
it started at some point in your videos,
Yeah.
and it's just very consistent now, is you'll be doing a video on the top 10 secrets
Mhm.
of the park or of this land or any video that you
Mhm.
might do, but then you just pause in the middle of it and you said, "Hey, I'm gonna take a break right now,
Mhm.
and I'm talking to you. I just wanna talk to you.
Yeah.
I love you. You might be struggling right now. You might be thinking that," and you look at the camera
Yeah.
and you talk to someone about a specific issue and tell them that you love them, you're grateful for them, they matter,
Yeah.
and to just hang in there.
Yeah.
So, why do you do that?
Yeah.
Don't
S
ever stop doing it, but
You know what? It's interesting. It's so interesting. Well, I'll tell you why I did started doing it. But I got when I first started doing it, I got a little bit of grief. I got a little embarrassed. I got a little bit of grief. People would make fun of me. They're like, why are you doing this? Like, you're whatever." But I had a dad one time, and he pulled me aside at Disneyland, and because of his family, and his son was there, and whatever, and he pulled me aside, and he's like, "You saved my son's life." He's like, "He was contemplating suicide, and he was watching a video, and that's what stopped him." He goes, and after I got that, I was like, "I'll never stop." What happened was, I think we've all gone through depression in our life, and I've had some experiences that were so devastating to me that some of them are still hard for me to talk about, but I had a very close person that was attempting suicide, and I got there and found their suicide note, and we thought it was over, and but luckily, they had their cell phone turned off, and their plan is they were gonna go out to a populated area and then turn the phone on so that we could find their body, and the second they turned the phone on, they were able to they just kept them on the phone, and they were texting, and I was the first one to get there, and I got there, and people don't realize the hole that it would leave in your heart, and I feel like the world's sometimes unhinged. We hear so much negativity, we don't hear our value or our worth, and I want people to know, like, when I'm talking to them, and when I'm doing that video, that there are people that are lonely. There are people, their parents who are struggling, who are at a job that they don't find fulfilling at all, and they're like, Is this worth I'm trying so hard to be good parent. There's people who are in relationships that are maybe a bad relationship, or maybe they found out that their significant other is cheating on them, or just devastated by that. I talked to a lot of times students. There's some students who they're trying so hard and they think they're dumb because they failed a test, and so they and I worry about those people, and nobody's sitting down, I feel like sometimes, and telling them, "You matter. You make a difference, and you make the world better." And I want them to know that, so that's why I started doing that video, as I try to give a message. In almost every video, I sit down and just tell somebody. I try to sometimes pin it to one particular category of people, or sometimes I try to keep it more broad and open, but I want people to hear that they make the difference, that they mean the world, that the world is better because you're here, and I don't want people to think that, like a suicide or depression, or that they think that's the end. It's not. There are ways that we can combat that, and we can work with that to make people realize that they are valued. Everybody's so valuable, and the world is better because people are in the world and make the world better. They just might not know it yet.
I love it. Sometimes I feel like if I talked to my friend the way I talk to myself,
Yeah.
I would punch him in the face,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That I'm really good at talking to myself and talking down to myself
Mhm.
and telling myself I don't have value, I don't have
Yeah.
worth. And this is, I had a good conversation on the podcast with a psychologist named Paul Jenkins, and we've talked about these concepts often,
Yeah.
and how sometimes someone else just has to kind of break you free of that
Yeah.
voice in your head.
Yeah. Well, I was in fact, I did it a little while ago. I was talking to moms and dads in one of those little talks. I told them, I said, "The world is just unbalanced," because I said, "You're gonna see you go on Instagram, you see a mom that's got, like, 7 kids, and they're all perfectly dressed, and they're all behaving, and the mom's, like, some fitness instructor, and she's like, 'Woo,' and she's like, 'Life is great.'" And I'm like, "That's not real. That is not real. That is not the way it is. I mean, that is not real." people as parents, we have good days and bad days with our kids. We have days where we get along with them. We have days when we argue with them. We have days when we're just barely hanging on. We have days that we're doing great, and we can't compare ourselves because we saw that one little moment of a person whose life looks like they're perfect. We think their life is perfect. What's wrong with my life? And it's devastating. Causes anxiety for a lot of the kids. A lot of kids don't understand that. Causes anxiety with them, and they don't realize that they're amazing. That they're good at that. And so for me, like I had experience where I struggled. I struggled in school a lot when I was younger, and I thought I was really dumb. I didn't know. I just was like, oh well, yeah, I'm a C student. I'm whatever. And I got into fifth grade. I had this teacher, and she believed in me, and she challenged me, and like she pushed me so hard, and she's like, "You can do you're intelligent, you're smart, you're brilliant, you can do this." And I believed it, and it altered the way that I thought of myself as a student. I was like, "I can solve these problems." When before, I would've just been like, "I don't know how to do it," and then have the teachers show me, and I really wouldn't have learned it because I thought I couldn't learn it. And now all of a sudden, I was like, I can do this." And so, that was just a little example where people don't realize their worth because people aren't telling you that. And we have, like you said, that internal voice sometimes is negative, is kind of tearing us down. That's because we're comparing it, we're looking around the world, and it's false. It's a false narrative. So, yeah.
Well, I'm happy you're trying to help be like your teacher
So oh,
to
yeah,
to
yeah,
people out there because, sometimes I always watch your videos because I want a little bit of positivity,
yeah,
and if I could describe your channel, I would say that you have a channel that's your channel is about positivity and
yeah,
goodness,
yeah,
and you happen to talk about Disney
yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I love that. That's one of the
because
nicest things I've ever heard. Yeah,
that's the feeling that
yeah,
you promote, and I love it, and that's
yeah,
why I promised myself. And I was super nerdy about it. I told my wife, even the morning I saw you at Disneyland,
yeah,
that first time, I said, "If I run into Chris," and I'm super shy, actually,
yeah.
like,
Oh,
if someone serves me the wrong thing at a restaurant, I'm like, "No, this is fine, this
this
is great,
yeah,
this is what I actually wanted," I
right,
won't
right.
I won't go like, "They didn't give me a fork," I won't go ask for a new one,
Yeah,
I'm like, "I'll just eat it with my hands,"
yeah. You don't wanna
um,
ever inconvenience anybody,
right,
right?
and so it was really uncomfortable for me to go
Yeah,
interrupt and
yeah.
approach somebody, and so I was like, "I gotta do it." So, I'm so happy I did.
I'm so glad you did too. I encourage people to do that. I always get messages or people will tag me on Instagram, Provost Park on Instagram, and they're like, "I saw Chris, but I was too shy to come say hi," and they'll take a picture from, like, a distance, and I always write back, I'm like, "Next time, promise you'll say hi," 'cause I enjoy it. Some people come up, they wanna talk Disney, or sometimes they'll talk baseball. I love baseball, I'm okay with that, or just wanna just chit-chat about whatever. I think it's fine. I love it. It doesn't bother me at all.
Well,
So,
I promise if I see you there again,
yeah,
I'm not gonna let you go,
that's
but
fine.
the churros are on me,
Oh
so
my gosh, churros. Yeah.
so I've got a couple other questions for
Sure,
you
let's
before
do it.
before we head this things out. One, could you kinda go back in time and briefly tell the story about the shirt and tie? That's
Oh,
one.
yeah, 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 sure, sure,
You
sure.
know,
Oh,
that's part that's
yeah,
how did that become the uniform?
yeah. So, for those of you who are maybe listening who've not seen the channel, I always wear a white shirt and tie in every video. In fact, I'm wearing one right now in the podcast. This is white shirt and tie. And the way that started is 'cause I used to live in, Irvine. My wife and I lived in Irvine, and I worked at a professional job. And by professional, I mean that I had to wear a suit and tie every day of going to work. I had to have a suit and tie, and what I would do is I would just leave after work and go right to Disney and just take my suit jacket off, and I didn't even think anything of it. I just had my tie on and my, white shirt on, and it didn't even really cross my mind. It just seemed so normal to me because I think it's because I was so used to having a suit on. Just take a jacket off, I felt very comfortable, and so I started doing the suit and tie, I mean, the white shirt and tie, and I think we were talking about this, it was maybe we had just a few thousand subscribers, and it was the very first time I'd ever been recognized in the park. And it was a girl, and she might have been 9 or 10, and she came up, and I was just wearing a t-shirt, and she's like, "Chris, Chris," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love your channel." And she's like, "Can I get a picture?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely, we do that." And then she stopped, and she looked at me, and she's like, "Why aren't you wearing your shirt and tie?" And she burst into tears and started to cry, and she's like, "Nobody's gonna believe me." And at that point, I was like, Done. I will wear the I have no problem. So whenever I go to Disney, if I'm doing something like Provost Park Pass-esque, I'll wear the shirt and tie and that's fine. If I sometimes I'll go if I go with just a family, we're just like if I'm on vacation, I'm not wearing the shirt and tie and most people don't. I just kind of try to blend more in the crowd. But when I'm doing Provost Park Pass, I'll put the shirt and tie on and we'll go. And I felt that that girl, it just devastated her. I felt so bad. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it." And that point, I didn't realize it was such a good marketing tool. It was just easy for me to take my jacket off. And so, yeah, that's how I did that.
Well, you made that girl happy, well, I
Yeah.
hope afterwards,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's the brand and it's
Yeah,
great,
yeah,
and I love it because then I
yeah.
can spy you too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I get that a lot, and people they get nervous, but when they see the shirt and tie, I think it helps them kinda relax. Like, "Oh, okay, sure." Yeah, so yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, but before we end, I hope we can do this again
Oh, I would
sometime,
love to.
by
Yeah,
the
it's
way.
very enjoyable. Yeah.
So where can people find you? You've mentioned it a couple times, but where do people
Sure.
find you?
The best place is YouTube, and you just type in Provost, it'll pop right to the top, or Park Pass, but the name of the channel is officially is Provost Park Pass, and, we do about 3 videos a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays usually, and so usually most of the time is Disney oriented. This week, we are doing a little bit of some cool history facts about Rome. We have been in Rome. About twice a year, we try to do outside of Disney or theme parks, try to just do a little more educational travel stuff. But we do mostly Disney, Universal Studios, Knott's Berry Farm, Legoland, and we try to teach people how to have the best vacations, how to save money, all that type of stuff. So Provost Park Pass on YouTube. Our Instagram is also Provost Park Pass as well. So you go there and if you ever take pictures of us, tag us, and we'll try to share them and let people see that as
And
well.
there's so much fun content to watch,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then last before we end,
yeah.
could you give maybe some top 5 tips
Sure,
for somebody going to Disneyland? You know, top 5 tips that you would tell somebody that's not the
sure, sure.
all the time
So are we talking like this is like
visitor.
their first trip to Disney, or
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
taking a
let's
first
just
trip?
say
Okay,
first trip, what are top 5 things that you would say?
okay. So
And
top
then I
5.
might chime in with some that I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
just jump in. I love this. So for me, I think the this is important to understand. We'll talk about this before you get the tips. Is there are two types of people that really attend Disney. There are what I would call ride centric, and they want to ride rides. That's how they determine the value. Is the more rides, the better they feel. Ride centric people, and then everything else is just entertainment centric people. Like they want the plays, they want the parades, they want the fireworks, they want the food. And so I think you kinda wanna take a look at what you're looking at there is like, what are you? And we kinda usually skew more towards the rides. Everybody does. But my first tip is to realize that it's not just rides. Disney, it's all encompassing. I mean, my first tip is look at everything. Look at all those different types of activities that most people don't even know. Like for example, in Disney California Adventure, they have it's called the Animation Station or Animation Academy. You go in and you learn how to draw a character. It's free. It's something you
It's
do.
so fun.
It is so
Kids
fun.
love it.
It's never crowded. I've never been in there where it's been at capacity. I've never been where they had to turn people away. It's always they always have plenty of room for everybody. It is so fun, and you get a free souvenir, like, you're drawing as a family, you can keep that, it's awesome. So I would always say look at other things that just besides the rides to do. If the rides are super important and that's what you really wanna do, then if you have little ones, you wanna go right at the very beginning, they call it rope dropping. Rope and there used to be a rope at the end of Main Street, and they would drop the rope and everybody would run over the rope. They don't have that rope anymore, but they still call it rope dropping. But you wanna be to the park about 45 minutes before the park opens. So if the park opens at 8, then you need to be there at 7:15. A lot of people, when they go, the park opens at 8, so they all arrive at 8 o'clock. You have about an hour after the park opens. It's a golden hour where it's not crowded because people are just arriving. And so I always say, get there at about 7:15. You're allowed to go on Main Street, and then they also they open it up and you go do those rides. So
It
that's for sure.
really is one of the best secrets is rope drop.
100%, 100%. And then also the other thing is that in the evening after fireworks or in the parade, there's usually a parade in the evening, a lot of families with little children, the kids are tired and because 'cause they've been pushing it all day. So if you have the option to go back and take a nap during the day with a little one and then stay later, in the evening, the park dies down again as well.
They
But yeah.
close the park, yeah.
Yeah. And here's something that most people don't know, and this has changed. One of the busy weeks of the year now is the last week of August. So, in the month of August, you can slam just slam. But now, the last week of August is one of the least attended weeks because everybody's waiting, they're gearing up for the Halloween stuff. So families quit going, they're waiting, and so that's another time if you're trying to beat the crowds. A lot of people don't know that the last week of August is usually pretty good.
I love
So,
it.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, the very first tip that I give to people
Yeah.
when they say, "Hey," they're usually asking, "Where do I eat? Where do I go? What do
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to tell us?" Sadly, a lot of this is, "Hey, we're going to Disneyland right now." Like,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
walking to the park. I'm like, "Well, you already lost because you didn't go to Rope
You
Drive."
did, yeah.
But the first thing I tell people is, and it's usually the dads, "Dads, I'm sorry, but you gotta fix this, okay? Your attitude."
Oh, yeah,
So
100%.
number 1 is if the way that you're speaking about this trip beforehand is, "Oh my gosh, we're going to Disneyland, and I hate the lines. I can't believe I'm gonna be spending money
Mhm.
and just waiting in another line." You've already decided that your experience is gonna be miserable.
Yeah,
You chose that. So you have the ability to choose how your vacation's gonna be, but not just for you, for your kids. You owe it to your kids to deliver them magic experience. If you're gonna spend the money to
yeah,
take them there,
yeah.
you be Disneyland dad.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
make it for them and just mentally prepare yourself in advance. "Daddy, can I have a churro?" "Heck yes, you can have a
Yeah.
churro."
There I'm gonna go along with that, is that this is a great tactic for children. So our son Miles is now 7, and he'll ride any he's afraid of nothing, he loves everything, he does it all the thrill rides, and I always get a lot of parents like, "How did you get your son to not be afraid of the roller coasters?" or whatever. What I found is I just told him how he should feel before we get on the ride. So when we would, like, ride Space Mountain, the roller coaster in the dark, the first time, I told him, I'm like, "You're gonna love this. It's super fun, it's in the dark, so you're gonna feel the wind going across your face, and you're gonna love it, and if you wanna scream and yell, you can, it's perfectly acceptable, it's a lot of fun." And I go, "It's just so fun, and you're gonna feel these little drops." And I said, "And every time you do, it just the excitement gets higher and higher and higher." And I just spell it out in all positivity
You
for
say
them.
it's excitement, it's
Yes,
not fear.
excitement versus fear, absolutely. So when he gets off, he's like, "That was so much fun." Because there's other I've seen other parents, they're like, "Okay, this is a scarier ride. This is really scary." And they start putting that seed in their kid's head, and then they all panic.
I love it. Well, again, another bit of evidence that this guy likes to help people feel something positive. So, thank you so much for
Oh,
spending time on the
it was
show.
this has been my pleasure. Yeah, I'd love to come back again. So, yeah,
Yeah,
this has
well,
been
we'll
great.
do it, and thank you, folks. We are grateful for you. You matter. We love you.